The Rays are on a roll, winning 4 straight to close to within 2 games in the AL wildcard race. Tonight, Tampa Bay opens a pivotal 10-game road trip deep in the heart of Texas versus Prince Fielder and the Rangers. Tonight we welcome you to Texas, where the Rays begin a critical 3-city road trip. This will be the first of 3 games against the Texas Rangers. Hi again, everyone. Welcome to an evening of Rays baseball with Brian Anderson, Dwayne Stats. Great to have you looking in tonight. The Rays coming off a great homestand. They were 4-1. They come in here just 2 games back in the wild card race, and they're going to face this Texas Ranger offense led by the leading hitter in the American League, Prince Fielder, and the Rays will counter with the red-hot Asdrubal Cabrera.
Yeah, and for Prince Fielder, the most productive hitter on this team, obviously leading the American League in average, but he also is tied for the team lead with the Rangers with 17 home runs and leads this team with 68 runs driven in. Very selective at the plate, but also very aggressive. He has that wicked uppercut swing, power from foul pole to foul pole. Very productive right now. Comes in on a 5-game hitting streak. And like I said, leading the team in average, leading the league in average. He's a guy they're going to have to watch out for in the middle of that lineup. Now, Asdrubal Cabrera, how about this? Since coming off the disabled list the last 2 weeks, he's 24 out of 50. Leads Major League Baseball in batting average and on-base percentage in that time frame. He's been hot from the left side of the plate, hot from the right side of the plate. And how about this? 8 of his last 9 ball games have been multi-hit ball games. He's been very aggressive also, but also very good with the in-game adjustments. Let's see if that he can keep that up and keep that Rays offense rolling here tonight.
More than just the Texas Heat to contend with tonight. 2 hot hitters, the leading hitter in the American League, Prince Fielder, and for the Rays, Asdrubal Cabrera leads the charge. We'll have all the action from Arlington, Texas in just a moment. While the Rays have closed the wild card gap to 2, Texas tried to keep its hopes alive. The Rangers 3.5 back in that wild card race as we open this series here tonight, the first of 3. You can see in the American League East, the Rays have moved into 3rd. They are 5 games back of Toronto with New York, a half game off the pace. There's the wild card race. Yankees and the Angels in right now, but the Rays just 2 games back. Let's take a look at the starting lineup for the Rays tonight, presented by your Southern Ford dealers. Brandon Guyer will get the start against the lefty. Schaefer's in there as the DH in front of Evan Longoria, hitting 3rd, playing 3rd. At first base, Logan Forsythe has Drupal Cabrera at short, hits 5th in front of Desmond Jennings, who's back, and he'll be in left field. Tim Beckham hits 7th, Kevin Kiermaier 8th, and Kurt Casale is in that ninth spot. He'll do the catching.
And this Rays lineup will be going up against the left-hander for the Texas Rangers, Martin Perez, and he's been very impressive his last 2 outings. A combined 14 1/3 innings, giving up just 3 earned runs and picking up a win against the San Francisco Giants and a no decision against the Seattle Mariners. You see his season stats right there. Had Tommy John surgery back in May of 2014, has come back, and for the most part has thrown the ball well. That ERA skewed by 1 outing against the New York Yankees. Let's take a look at that Texas Ranger defense as it lines up behind Perez. In the outfield left to right, we're going to have Josh Hamilton, Delino DeShields, and Shin-Soo Choo. Across the infield, 3rd to 1st, Adrian Beltre, Elvis Andrus, Rougned Odor, Mitch Moreland, and behind the plate, familiar face, Bobby Wilson. Defense brought to you by BMW.
All set to play ball. Here's Martin Perez. All set to make his 6th start of the year against Brandon Guyer. Guyer starts tonight at 2:51. First pitch of this game is a fastball upstairs. 1 ball and no strikes. Down to 3rd, and Beltre's right there. Whips the throw across the diamond to start this one. 1 away.
Well, the key to Perez's success has been keeping the ball on the ground, and he's done a good job of that. Adrian Beltre, a very accomplished 3rd baseman. Elvis Andrus, a good glove man. He's got some guys that can handle the leather, and that's what he wants to do, wear out the infield.
Here's Richie Schaefer, serving as the designated hitter, and the first pitch is a strike. It's 1-1.
Well, the setup of Perez on the mound was for that last particular pitch. He sets up on the far 3rd base side, makes it easier to get the ball in on the rights.
Schaefer out in front, and it's 1-2.
When you have that kind of an angle, you can get in on the righties easier, and then you get arm side run down and away, and that's what gives you the ground balls.
2 balls and 2 strikes, and since he has come back, he's throwing more ground balls than ever.
And it's perfectly set up to do that. You know, he creates a good downhill angle, as you can see. And that was a very, very close pitch right there to Richie Schaefer.
So the count is full. And this one by the mound. Gloved by Andrus, the shortstop. Close play at first out there. And a crisscross out there with Odor and Andrus creating a distraction, but they get the out nevertheless.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about maintaining concentration. Elvis Andrus headed up the middle. Here comes Rougned Odor right in front of him. And so you've got to avoid contact, continue to field that baseball, get it out of the glove clean, and make a throw. Not easy. I'll tell you what, that's great concentration by Andrus and a heck of a play.
Apparently the infield philosophy is grab anything you can get to.
Well, the Rays have one of them in center field, and Kevin Kiermaier and Elvis Andrus here in the infield for the Rangers.
Want to know the count on Evan Longoria? The Rangers have had some defensive deficiencies. 86 errors. Only the Oakland A's have committed more. And around second base, Andrus with 19 and Odor 13. Down to short, glove by Andrus, and his goes on the money. 3 ground balls, 3 up, 3 down. Bottom of the first coming, no score. This starting lineup for the Rangers, presented by your Southern Ford dealers. Delino DeShields leads off, followed by Shin-Soo Choo, and then Prince Fielder, the DH. Adrian Beltre, the cleanup man, in front of Fitz Moreland, who's swinging a hot bat. Josh Hamilton's in there in left. Elvis Andrus hits 7th in front of Rougned Odor. And Bobby Wilson will do the catching at bat 9.
And for the Rays, it's all about winning ball games, and that's all Nathan Karns has been doing recently. His last 4 starts, he is 3-0. The team 4-0.
His first pitch to Delino DeShields is a strike call. DeShields batting .265 and finds himself among the league leaders in stolen bases. For him, it was just a matter of getting on enough, and he's on here, hit by a pitch that just barely got him. And the Rangers have a base runner.
Boy, that's a frustrating way to get a leadoff base runner. If you're Nathan Karns, you're coming with a fastball. It's up and in, and I mean, it must have just grazed the knuckles. But it was instantly called right here as he holds that hand up. The home plate umpire, Gabe Morales, said, "Head on down to first, young man."
Well, here is Shin-Soo Choo. And he's been hot at the plate. DeShields already leaning, and he's headed. Pitches a ball, and the throw's not in time. So a stolen base, the 19th by DeShields in 22 attempts. And the opposition now 15 of 17 with Karns on the mound. So you can be sure the Rangers, given the opportunity, will take advantage.
Well, it was all about the jump. A pretty good lead there by DeShields. An even better jump and really uncontested. Too easy.
Choo, since the All-Star break, is pushing .330, hitting .241 overall. Shows the bunt and takes the pitch high, 2-0. The other thing that the Rays have to be cognizant of is the first inning issue that Nathan Karns has had. He's pitched so well This is his 23rd start. But when he does run into trouble, it seems to be early in this first inning. Now 3-0 to Chew.
Well, and I think that you could trace that to, being physically ready. Nathan Karns, we know that the Rays put together a tremendous game plan, so it's not a matter of game plan. You don't see this team a ton where they're already going to be making adjustments against you. It's coming out of the bullpen, locked in and ready to go, be able to execute your pitches.
There's a strike, 3-1.
And sometimes you hear that all the time. Well, if you're going to get to this guy, get to him early, because once he settles in, I mean, how many times have you heard that year after year? Nathan Karns, one of those guys. If he comes in executing, that's when he has his great nights.
And he walks Chew. 2 men on with the American League leader in hitting, Prince Fielder.
Let's set the defense for you real quick. Brought to you here by BMW. In the outfield, left to right, we have Desmond Jennings, Kevin Kiermaier, and Brandon Guyer. And across that infield, third to first, Longoria, Cabrera, Beckham, and Forsythe with Kurt Casale behind the plate. Dwayne, here's the other thing that you got to think of. Nathan Karns getting this opportunity here to pitch at home in front of a lot of family, a lot of friends. You know that right now emotions are running high.
He went to high school just a 5-minute car ride from here, and he misses on the first pitch to Fielder. And that ticket list was rather extensive for him, and he gets a visit from Kurt Casale.
Yeah, and I'll bet you anything that that's playing into that. He obviously wants to perform well. It's not like the Rays, are in Arlington very often. He's getting this great opportunity on a beautiful night to pitch against in front of a lot of family and friends, and so emotions are running high, the adrenaline is pumping, and right now he's been erratic with command. And that's exactly what you would expect.
And he misses with a curveball there. Stayed up, and it's 2-0, and you can see you get a visit from Jim Hickey here in the early stages of this game.
This is all about take a deep breath. This is the same game, the same way that you've been pitching. Just calm down and go back to one pitch at a time.
Well, the 27-year-old Karns, graduating from James Martin High School. He's down the road here, also in Arlington. Played baseball and football there. To North Carolina, and then wound up pitching 2 seasons at Texas Tech. Two and 0 the count. And there is ball 3. Karns did pitch against the Rangers at Tropicana Field back in the first part of May and pitched well. Came away with an 8-2 victory in 7+ innings. Behind Fielder, 3-0. And he walks him to load the bases. A hit batter and 2 bases on balls.
And really here through 3 hitters, we've not seen Nathan Karns locate a ball into the area that he wants to yet. And that is going to be the key. And now with the bases loaded, nobody out, you better find it rather quickly.
Well, 11 pitches, and with that, only 2 strikes. Adrian Beltre. There's a first pitch strike.
You know how you get into football games and you take that first hit, and now you feel like, okay, the game started? That's what Nathan Karns, he needs a ball put into play. He needs contact, a ball put into play. Now we go. Preferably an out, maybe where you can get a double play.
Ground ball to third. Out at third. The throw to first. They get the double play, and Shields scores the run. So the Rays get the double play with Fielder moving up to second, to Shields scoring. And Texas has the first run of this game.
And if you can end this inning right here, retire the next hitter and get out of it, allowing only that run, after the way that Nathan Carnes' command has been so erratic. You will take that in a heartbeat.
Well, here's Mitch Moreland, and no soft touch by any stretch. He's having a great year. 17 home runs and 61 runs batted in. He is 6th in the league in hitting against right-handed pitching at .309. A big cut and a little foul ball, strike one.
That lets you know right now, Mitch Moreland, fastball hunter, very aggressive. You start him off with a first pitch changeup. Typically that may not always be the best of ideas when you haven't seen a guy in a game. But Nathan Carnes executed flawlessly there, and Moreland was way out in front.
There's a strike, and it's 0-2. And that's one thing he has been during this hot streak. He normally in his career has been a very patient hitter, but he's upped his approach much like the Rays have as a team. He's been more aggressive early in counts. Fly ball lifted into left center field. Kiermaier has the range and makes the catch. And the Rays get out of a big spot in pretty good shape, giving up just one. Brought to you by Toyota. Let's go places. By Morgan Auto Group. Megan Morgan, we make it happen. And by Kona Brewing Company. One life, right? Don't blow it. Mahalo. Rays out in the first inning on 3 ground balls against the left-hander Martin Perez. And Logan Forsythe set to begin inning 2. This pitch is a strike. Forsythe then as Asdrubal Cabrera and Desmond Jennings. 0-2. Down and in, a ball and 2 strikes. Perez just 24 years old, making his 6th start of the season in this series opener here for Texas against the Rays in Arlington. Ground ball, Odor has this one, and so on the 4th consecutive ground ball, 1 out here in the 2nd.
And you can see the recipe already for Perez. He is burying the fastball down and away to the right-handed hitters with good downhill angle, and he's also shown the ability to pitch in and pitch in effectively. So that's what he's going to stick with. You can bet on that until the Rays start to make an adjustment. It's going to be difficult if he continues to execute like he has so far.
Well, here's Asdrubal Cabrera, whose average is up to 259 with this very hot run he's been on. The Buick big matchup. You can see he goes from 223 and then at that 480 clip has his average up to the current 259.
It's been really a remarkable turnaround, and this is just coming off the disabled list. I mean, 8 of his last 9 games have been multi-hit games, and he's getting it done right-handed and left-handed. I mean, he's a complete hitter right now. The best going in Major League Baseball over that time frame.
Cabrera down in the count now, 1-2. That has not been an obstacle for him during this hot stretch, and there's one deep, but it's foul. He had home run distance on that one, but sliced it foul to the right of the pole down the right field line.
Well, these kind of nights, we saw it with Mitch Moreland, you get the ball up in the air and you catch it clean, and it is going to carry for you. There's no doubt about
it. He lines it into left this time, headed toward the corner. Hamilton tries to keep it out. Extra bases for Cabrera, who stands with a double at second base.
Well, this will be the key for the Rays hitters. When Perez comes up in the zone, make him pay. And right here, the fastball, you can see same plane, it stays up, and Cabrera, as hot as he is able to get on top of it, and another extra base hit.
So Desmond Jennings now just reinstated from the disabled list. He was placed on the DL back in the first few days of May the 3rd, retroactive to the 26th of April. So here we are on August the 14th, and he's finally back, and he's up there with a man in scoring position. 1 ball, no strikes. Jennings had started just 18 games for the Rays. And the pickoff play, they throw it into center field. Cabrera is going to go to third base, 90 feet closer.
You know, that's one of those unforced errors for no reason. Asdrubal Cabrera is not going to steal third base. I mean, if you're going to turn and spin and you know that you can get him, it shouldn't have to be a close play, but he's not going anywhere. And so you turn and you force this play. Martin Perez throws that ball right down the wrong side of the bag, but still Odor should have handled it. He doesn't, and the Rays now run around third less than 2. That's part of the defensive issues that have plagued this team, Dwayne, you were talking about in the first inning.
Well, a great opportunity for the Rays. There's ball 2 to Jennings. The error charged to Perez, but it is a throw that could have been handled.
And if the camera angle from behind home plate, his lead wasn't even big. There was no reason for the play. That's just getting too cute, and you cost yourself 90 feet, 90 important feet.
Well, with 1 out now, the Rays get that man over to third. And they're going to concede the run.
There you go.
Takes the count to 2-2.
Well, here's Asdrubal Cabrera, not the biggest base stealer. He doesn't have a moving lead, and he's not that far off of second base, and they're going to force this. He's almost leaning back towards second base. Absolutely no reason for that throw, for that pickoff play. And now the Rays have got to make them pay for that.
Looking for contact out of Jennings. 2-2 the count. Jennings takes ball 3 inside. little tap, just a piece of that one staying alive. And one other thing to be aware of with Gabe Morales, a young umpire behind the plate, a lot more strikeouts in his games than walks.
I'm golf clapping over here.
3-2 and a line drive. That's a fair ball into left. Cabrera scores. Big turn by Jennings, and he decides to hang on at first with an RBI single.
And you got to wonder, with the speed of Desmond Jennings, how he's only on first base. A line drive up the left field line. How Josh Hamilton was able to keep him at first base, not really sure, unless he slipped or fell coming out of the box. Ball down and in, dropped the bat head, hit the line drive. This absolutely should have been 2 bases.
So Jennings drives in the run with this line drive, and Hamilton did have to cover a lot of ground to go get the ball in the opposite direction. 1-0 the count to Tim Beckham. Sharply hit foul outside the bag. 1-1. Beckham turned out to score the tying run in that game Wednesday night when the Rays scored 6 runs in the 7th to ultimately defeat Atlanta 9-6. Beckham entered as a pinch runner and scored the tying run. Now 2 balls and a strike. Ground ball, shortstop, Andrews to Odor, and across to first to Moreland on the 6-4-3 double play. Rays get the run back. An inning and a half has gone by. It's tied at 1.
For how involved he's been with youth baseball. He spoke at the RBI closing dinner, World Series closing dinner tonight here at Globe Life Park. Like I said, he has supported youth baseball by mentoring RBI kids all across the country. RBI stands for Reviving Baseball in Inner Cities. He spoke to kids 13 to 18 years old. Dwayne B.A., I'm telling you, these kids weren't making a peep. Archer was just stressing the importance of not only developing baseball skills through this program, but also becoming a young man.
Yeah, you get a chance to hear a big leaguer in that situation. It's interesting what happens to the attention span. It becomes very, very good.
A lot different than if it was like Mr. Jennings from history class.
That's right. 1-1 to count to Josh Hamilton, and he drives this one deep into right center field. Geyer runs out of room, and that ball's up over the bullpen and into the stands. So on a 1-1 pitch, Hamilton gives the lead back to Texas.
The order of the day is, unless it's by design, keep the ball down, and when you go up, you better know that you're going to get the swing and a miss, because the ball, we said early on, is going to fly. This ball stays up. Hamilton sees it well, and as soon as he made contact, there was no question where that was headed.
It's his 6th home run of the year. Hamilton hitting a changeup that stayed up, and he hit it a long way. Here's Elvis Andrus. And the breaking ball, first pitch, that's in. Strike one. The 16th home run given up by Nathan Carnes. That one logged in at 437 feet. Two balls and a strike. It's a liner foul and a nice catch down there.
I mean, that ball was roped, and she made a heck of a play.
Even that far down, it was hit so hard. You know, you think that might handcuff you, but she kept the glove up.
She got it out in front.
Yeah.
Like a good fielder does. Don't let that ball get deep. Save that right kneecap, too.
Yeah.
Co-ed baseball, my first pick. Dwayne, I got her.
Be able to catch the ball. Good defense to help your pitching. Well, Andrews is out on strikes for the first strikeout of the game for Carnes, and the first out in the bottom of the second.
Well, breaking ball, you talk about expanding the zone. I mean, this ball's not even close, and then a nice job by Kurt Casale to keep it close. You know, that ball bounds off his leg, and Andrews has an opportunity to take first base on it, but he blocked it, applied the tag, out one.
Here's Odor, the second baseman. First pitch is a fastball away. To get a major league hitter to swing and miss that badly at that pitch says a lot about that pitch.
He spins that curveball so tight. And, you know, we talked about it last year. When you diagram a baseball and spinning like a four-seam fastball and then like a curveball, it's tough to tell the difference initially. And there's no hump because he throws that spike curve and it rolls over one finger. There's no little hump to the ball coming out of the hand. It stays same plane. So initially out of the hand, it's a tough read. And if you sell out too soon, you'll swing just like Andrus did.
2-1 to count to Odor. Two and one to count. And Odor hits it on the ground. Carnes finds the bag in time. Took a little beat before he got off the mound. And Forsythe found himself a good distance from first. That's out number 2. Tonight is Flashback Rays Day, brought to you by Ram. Submit the best vintage photo of yourself by using the hashtag FlashbackRays. We'll select the best photo and feature it on the postgame show. There's Bobby Wilson. Pitch is a strike. Oh, 2 now. Bobby Wilson coming over to the Rangers. And in 6 games, he's hitting .375 in a Texas uniform. And he did go. He's out on strikes. So after the home run, 1-2-3, and this game now 2-1 Texas. This game tonight and all season, Tires Plus donates $100 to the Pediatric Cancer Foundation for every Tampa Bay Rays home run televised on Sun Sports. Kevin Kiermaier leads off, and then Kurt Casale. You saw Casale on deck there. Then back around to the top of the order, Brandon Guyer. Kiermaier in here against the lefty, and the pitch is a strike.
Well, that's something that we're seeing more and more of, and I, for one, and I know you feel the same, Dwayne, you love it. You love having Kevin Kiermaier out there every single day.
Well, he can help you in so many ways. Found that one off his foot. He'll help you defensively to prevent runs, and he'll put the pressure on the opposing defense with his speed, even hitting and out of the batter's box.
Well, and we've seen him be able to make those adjustments against left-handed pitchers. He watches how these guys are pitching him, able to recognize it, and then at that point you're thinking about just put the ball in play.
Ground ball toward the middle, backhanded by Odor. Throw not in time. Kiermaier takes a tumble after hitting the bag safely at first. A nice roll by Kiermaier, and let's hope that he's all right.
He'll be absolutely fine. And Dwayne, this is exactly what we're talking about. Make the adjustment, put the ball in play, and use your speed. That's just a chopper up the middle, but he goes so hard, and he caught the left leg on the leg of Mitch Moreland, who had his left leg well up on top of first base. You're going to see him clip it on the way down, the way by, right there.
An infield hit for Kevin Kiermaier. You know, the other side of that, Kiermaier, with that thumb injury he had, and you're always concerned about that, as well as the tumble he took. He puts that protective covering on his right hand. Kurt Casale takes a pitch too low. Kurt Casale got involved in that 6-run 7th inning with a home run high off the foul pole at Tropicana Field. That capped the inning and made it 9-6. Rays won by that score. One and one. Sally out in front of the changeup. One and two. Sally fouling the fastball. Leadoff man aboard. The Rays down by 1 in the top of the 3rd. The bat on the foul ball. Ball straight back and the bat toward the on deck circle.
Yeah, and fortunate for Kurt Casale, he was able to make contact. That was a fastball. Perez had been working down in the zone. That pitch up and out over the plate, trying to get the swing and a miss, and Casale gladly give that bat up to get that foul ball. It'll be interesting to watch this too with Kevin Kiermaier. He's got a pretty aggressive lead against Perez. That front hip open towards second base to allow for better clearance.
And this one hits Casale. So the infield hit, and now the hit batter, fastball. Hits Casale.
Well, Perez, boy, he continues to do damage to himself. The pickoff throw to Odor, not very smart. A 1-2 count against Kurt Casale. After an infield hit, you now hit him. First and second. Now the lineup turns over. Guys that have already seen you once.
Well, as we mentioned at the outset, he's coming back from Tommy John surgery. And actually he's put together a couple pretty good starts. And that's been an issue for Texas pitching. Their starters this year, a combined earned run average of 447, which is 13th in the American League, and their relief corps at 462, which is last in the American League.
Oh, I mean, go up and down. They're right at the top in home runs given up. They've walked the most hitters in the American League. It has not been pretty from the
Brandon
pitching staff.
Guyer. Rays start the runners, and the pitch is bounced foul. Strike one. Well, the Rays aggressive here with men at first and second. And we've seen them do that from time to time.
Absolutely, and why not? You've got a pitcher out there. Like I said, the pickoff throw, not the smartest. You just hit a guy in a 1-2 count. You know he's frustrated. So push the envelope just a little bit.
Foul ball again by Brandon Guyer, 0-2.
Martin Perez, obviously at this point going for the strikeout, but you'd expect him to continue And he may show you a pitch up in the zone, but continue to work down in the zone, try to get another ball on the ground, another double play ball.
Got the double play out of Beckham in the second inning. That ended the inning. One ball, 2 strikes. The second time the Rays have seen Perez in a starting role, one out of the bullpen and one as a starter, and he's 0-1 against them. They got 5 runs in just over 10 innings of combined work. Throw again, and that was to the first base side of second.
You might want to take that move and put it right in your pocket. He almost threw the Rays a couple of more base runners into scoring position, and Kiermaier, he may have scored. Turns and throws this one behind Odor. Again, the lead not very big. He's not moving.
But it's fouled back. Well, the idea that he would attempt that pickoff when he did in the second inning. The Rays now, knowing that he may be prone to do that, have really gotten into his head here with men at first and second, especially after starting both runners. The pitch following Casale being hit by that pitch.
We talk about dividing a pitcher's mind. Well, they've got Martin Perez thinking about a lot of things. And you're absolutely right. That plays right into it. Send him. Now he's thinking even more. Maybe he makes a mistake here to Brandon Guyer out over the plate.
Ground ball third. Beltre out there and out at first. Beltre starts a 5-3 double play. Casale moves into second.
And what a play by Beltre, because he's got to track the ball down, get to third, and then throw on the run, sidearm style, to try to get Brandon Guyer. Right here, the backhand, now the race, and make that sidearm throw. And gets it by a half a step.
And Kevin Cash would like them to review this play, take a look at first base.
And the only thing that you could think of, obviously the throw was caught by Mitch Moreland, but was the foot flush up against first base, or was it off? Did he catch the ball with the foot off the bag? I'm going to see it right here. The toe's on, the toe is on. It has come off. Well, I think the Rays may win this one.
Yep, I think the Rays may very well win this one.
Absolutely. When the ball goes into the glove, that foot was pulled off of the bag.
Well, from what we've seen so far, you would think the Rays have a chance to have this one overturned.
What's the level that they have to meet again? Clear and convincing?
That's it. Well,
pretty clear.
There's the clear and convincing right there. He's already off the bag.
Yep.
Before the ball arrives in the glove.
It can't be any more clear and convincing than that. I mean, close doesn't count. Horseshoes, maybe.
So the runner is safe at first. So the Rays get the call overturned. It'll be first and second with one out here in the third. Boy, as you pointed out, a difficult play by Beltre. He gets the first out, and he was trying to get his feet and timing down to make that throw as quickly as he could. And as a result, that quick throw essentially pulls Moreland off the bag.
And he's often using that sidearm. I mean, when he throws to first base, he's got the sidearm. But you're right, Dwayne. He was on the move and coming off the bag, and the throw was pulled slightly.
Now here's Schaefer. Richie Schaefer grounded to short his first time. 1-0 the count.
Well, early in this at bat, if you're Richie Schaefer, you want to force Perez up in the zone. Up in the zone, and then take one of those big cuts and try to do some damage.
Casale at second, Geyer at first. And he pops it up. Beltre backing out on the infield pop. Now it's the shortstop Andrus behind Beltre who makes the catch, the formality of the grab for the second out.
Boy, oh boy, he was so close. I mean, he had the right idea. The pitch had the right kind of height. It was just -6 or 7 in miles per hour, and he was just a hair out front. Boy, knows he was close. Knows that he was close. There's the changeup. Just off the end of the bat.
Well, you saw Kevin Cass give him a little attaboy slap as he went by because he knew he was trying to do the right thing. Here's Evan Longoria now, 2 outs. And that's a strike. Evan 3 for 4 in his career against Perez coming into this game, including a home run. 2 men on with 2 men out in the third. One and one. And a liner into left center field. In there for extra bases. Casale scores. Geyer heads to the plate. It's a double for Longoria, giving the Rays a 3-2 lead. Evan Longoria comes through with a 2-base hit up the alley in left center.
Well, and a great job by Evan seeing a pitch up in the zone and attacking. I'll tell you what, this Rays lineup trying to force Perez up, keep the ball off the ground. It's another changeup, another one that stays up just a hair, and Evan all over this one where Richie Schaefer was just a hair out in front. Evan is able to wait back and he gaps it.
26th double of the year for Evan and his 51st and 52nd runs batted in. Now it's Logan Forsythe with a man in scoring position. The breaking ball is in there for a strike. Perez made 20 pitches in the second. This is number 20 here in the third. One ball, one strike. Ground ball, that's headed to short. Andrus makes the play, and the Rays are out in the third, but they grab the lead. The 2-run double by Longoria makes it 3-2. Tonight, we raise up for Gary DeSati in the ALS Association Florida chapter. Gary has spent his retirement working tirelessly, helping advocate for people living with ALS by participating in events like the Ride to Defeat ALS, where his efforts raised over $37,000 for last year's event alone. We raise up for health. How do you raise up? Top of the order up for Texas, Delino DeShields. Shortens on the bat and takes the pitch from Carnes. Too low. 1 ball, no strikes.
Well, what starting pitcher is going to settle in first? It's been a back and forth affair so far. Nathan Carnes can make a big statement here with a scoreless bottom half.
Well, he started the first by hitting DeShields, who promptly stole second and eventually scored on a double play ball in a situation where the Rangers had the bases loaded and nobody out and settled for a run. There's a strike. It's 2-1.
And as easily as he stole second base in that first inning, you know if he gets out there, he's going to try it again.
Strike 2. Back with that same pitch and misses this time.
Well, and it was a good idea, a better take by Delino DeShields. That was a good 2-2 put away curveball out over the plate below the zone. It was a nice take.
And ball 4, he loses the speedster Delino DeShields.
Well, now your best stolen base prevention move, routine, whatever it is that you have, Nathan Carnes and Curt Casali, keep your eye on DeShields. He stole that bag in the first inning rather easily, and you got to think that he's looking to go once again.
Shin-Soo Choo in the batter's box. And a move to first this time, and DeShields was out there already leaning.
And this is where the scouting pays off. You know, is there a particular count DeShields likes to run in? You know, maybe that's when you target a pitch out, something like that. Obviously, you're going to have to throw over, try to keep him close.
Well, the Rays thinking he might be headed sooner rather than later, but he was not going.
Yeah, that was Casali set up way off the plate, and then that was basically a pitch out without acting like one.
He's going. Pitch is high. The throw got a chance, but he's in there. Oh, he came off the bag and he got him. DeShields out at second base. Trip Gibson on the call.
You know, was this a case of the tag being applied and keep the tag on it? Because the hand definitely beats him to the bag. And then the hand stays, the tag gets applied. Does the foot, does it come off right there? Yeah, maybe it came off right there. And the tag was still being held on. You get a great look at it here.
Yep. You can see the foot came off. So he gave up the bag twice.
You know, if you can be heavy-handed with some of these tags, you can force that foot off in a very subtle manner.
Well, that's a big out for the Rays to record. And now there's ball 3 to Choo.
You know, what's to stop a guy? Okay, here it is. Guy's sliding. I'm going to lay the tag on his foot here and just push. How would you know? Right there, push, nudge it off, get the call. Why not?
Got a veteran shortstop handling that ball out there.
I'm telling you, why not? We see guys, going into these bags head first, and the foot ends up, the toe ends up on the bag. So just apply that tag and give it a subtle little nudge.
Just strike 3 and 2.
I mean, how do you know?
Just a nudge.
Just a nudge. Oh, look, he came off. Had a full head of steam, and he came off the bag. Sorry.
3-2. Here's strike 3 called, and Chu is not happy. He's called out on strikes by Gabe Morales. And so it goes from a leadoff walk to suddenly 2 outs and the base is empty.
Right there at the kneecaps, out over the plate. Can't argue too much. That's a borderline pitch, but close enough. Can't take it.
Prince Fielder takes a big cut out front. Strike 1. And around the knees. Fastball. Rays fans making the trek to Texas. A ball, 2 strikes. Little tapper first base. That's going to stay fair. And Forsythe makes the play unassisted. We're through 3 in this game, and the Rays hold a 3-2 lead. '30th, when the Rays take on the Royals, and kids 14 and under receive a DJ Kitty drawstring bag presented by All Children's Hospital, Johns Hopkins Medicine, while supplies last. For tickets, call 888-FAN-RAYS or visit RaysBaseball.com. Off-speed pitch too high to Asdrubal Cabrera. 1 ball, no strikes. Ground ball down to third. Beltre. His throw to first on the money. 1 gone in the 4th. And that gives Cabrera 1 for 2. He had doubled and scored in the 2nd inning.
Left fielder Desmond Jennings.
Desmond Jennings came up with a line drive base hit in the 2nd inning. Got the Rays on the board. There's a fastball away. Perez wants a new baseball. Rays got a run in the second inning and then 3 in the third to take the 3-2 lead. Jennings tracks this one in for a strike. It's 1-1. He's behind in the count. Jennings had 9 rehab games in the minor leagues, was 6 of 28. Two. Little tap to the right side, charge, and the throw to first is still in time. Odor had to come in from deep second and then had a little trouble after he got there. Jennings is the second out.
Yeah, the ball not hit that hard, and so Odor charging, and there what you're talking about, Dwayne, could not get that ball out of the glove cleanly. Finally does, and still able to get Jennings.
So 2 outs now. Let's check in quickly with Emily.
Dwayne, it's kind of weird to see that number 8 back there on the field. It's been since April 25th. He missed 96 games. Desmond Jennings has been anxious to get back on the field. Like you said, he did 9 rehab starts. He said he's just ready to play. He's not trying to do too much, but they'll really need his base running. Cash said we're not gonna throw him out there 10 straight days, but we'll talk to him after every game and take it day by day.
Well, the Rays get him back in the lineup tonight, and he came through with a base hit his first time to get the Rays on the board. And if he can realize his potential, he would be a big addition here to this lineup. Beckham, Jim Beckham at first with a line single into left. Rays with a 2-out base hit. Kiermaier, a little tap to first. Moreland makes the play himself. No runs, a hit, 1 left. Rays lead 3-2. Fourth. Have you seen the Outlaw capture Kiermaier Saturday, August 29th, when the Rays battled the Royals, and all fans received a Kevin Kiermaier Outlaw action figure presented by Dex Imaging. While supplies last. For tickets, call 888-FAN-RAYS or visit RaysBaseball.com. Rays up. Adrian Beltre is going to open the bottom of the 4th inning for Texas, followed by Mitch Moreland and Josh Hamilton. Nathan Carnes delivers, and the first pitch is in there for a strike. way high there. Despite Carnes battling his command here in the first 3 innings, he still threw 3 and made 48 pitches, 16 in each of the first 3, and that total per inning is below his pitch count per inning for the season. Despite all that, still pretty good shape there if he can find his command. There's a big cut to miss, and he's ahead of Beltre 1-2. Beltre missed the fastball.
Well, and especially with the fact that the Rays, 2 of the last 4 days have been off. You know, the bullpen hasn't been that extended over the last work week, and the way that they like to use their pen, you keep him in line.
Liner into center, and Kiermaier's going to play it on one hop to his left. Nice job over there, and that holds Beltre to a base hit.
That's another way that Kevin Kiermaier helps you. And now it goes down as a single in the scorebook, but very easily could have been a double. But Kevin Kiermaier, the jump that he gets, the fact that he's able to track this ball down, a curveball that Beltre is able to get underneath. Impressive piece of hitting by the Texas third baseman.
Yeah, and with that pitch, where it was and how he hit it, had a little slice the other way. There are a lot of center fielders that ball's going to get by, and at least for a double, and some hitters could have a triple on that.
And at minimum, you're going to get a lot of center fielders that take that deep angle, and by taking the deep angle, you basically concede the double. But Kiermaier trusts his, he trusts his legs, trusts his speed, his ability to get to the baseball, and he took a straight direct line, and it's a single.
1 strike to count to Mitch Moreland. A very hot hitter in this Texas lineup, Moreland. Pitch away, 1-1. He's coming off a 4-hit game yesterday in Minnesota. Just wrapped up a road trip. He had 409 on their road trip, 9 of 22. It's a strike. 1-2. It's a long one, but well foul. Moreland hit the fastball a long way, but well foul.
Well, it's been back-to-back fastballs on the inner half here to Mitch Moreland. Now in a 1-2 count. Do you start to go away? Do you drop the curveball down and in? Try to spin that ball down into the dirt. Nathan Carnes has some options. I think he's going to, right here, head over to first base.
Beltre's the runner with nobody out. Ground ball. Beckham's going to take the long throw to Longoria, covering the bag at second to cut down Beltre, the lead runner.
And that's a risky play. You know, Tim Beckham not out at second base every day. He's moving to his left deep into the hole, and then is going to have to turn his body and throw this ball all the way back out to second to get the lead runner. You see Beckham moving away, the inside turn, which means you can't get as much on the throw, and he's able just to get Beltre.
Man at first with 1 out. Josh Hamilton, who homered back in the second inning, fouls this one away. 103.8 off the bat. That one traveled 437 feet. Shot to center field. Kiermaier's there for this one. Hamilton lines out to center. 2 away. And Elvis Andrus will be the hitter. Carnes struck out Andrus on the curveball in the second inning. One of 3 strikeouts for Carnes tonight. This one bouncing away, but not far enough to give Moreland any ideas. A ball, no strikes.
That's one thing that you got to be aware of with Nathan Carnes on the mound. A lot of wild pitches, and every single one of them come off that curveball. And that's why, even as a Texas base runner, you've got to anticipate those breaking balls in the dirt. Maybe get yourself an extra 90 feet. There, Moreland does not. And therefore doesn't get into scoring position here with 2 down.
It's a strike on a fastball. 1-1. New York batting in the top. Now the Yankees have gone out. The Blue Jays are coming into bat in the bottom of the 7th in Toronto, and the Blue Jays lead the Yankees 3-0 in that game.
Well, what else is new?
Boy, tough to stop that Toronto runaway train.
Well, like anything else, it becomes mental. Not only are they supremely talented, and the pitching's been much better, but now they believe they're going to win every single time they step out on the field. They've got that belief, and boy, they are getting it done.
Well, they've won 11 in a row now. They have a 3-run lead in the bottom of the 7th at home over New York.
You know, what is it, 13 out of 14 or 14 out of 15 total? And in that time frame, you know, what held them back was the pitching. Well, they made some acquisitions, Mark Lowe, David Price, but their team ERA in that time frame is under 2. You combine that with that lineup, it's no wonder.
2 in the dirt. Curveball. So it's a full count, our Toyota trend, and this is what you're talking about, BA, right there, averaging almost 5.5 runs a game.
I mean, right there, that was your trouble spot. That was your trouble spot. That's why everybody's eyebrows were raised when the first trade they made was for Troy Tulowitzki. They're like, wait a minute, you need to address the pitching staff. Well, they've done that, and the other guys that were already there have thrown the ball much better.
And there's ball 4 too high. That pushes Moreland up to second base. And with all of that, the standings in the American League East will find the Blue Jays a half game above New York, 5 up on the Rays. Toronto riding their 11-game winning streak. Well, here's the thing that, and you're right about the offense, because 5.4, well, they're averaging 5.3 for the year.
Right.
So the offense still producing a lot of runs. Right. In fact, they're the only team averaging over 5 runs. The Yankees were next at 4.8, and then this Texas club at a little over 4.4 runs a game. 2 on, 2 out. Here's Odor. A ball, no strikes. Down to first. Forsythe's got it. Odor is out of there. Texas strands 2. We're through 4, and the Rays lead 3-2. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit us at geico.com or call 1-800-947-AUTO. And by Checkers, epic meals, epic deals. Where's Todd Callis when we need him?
You know what? It's no wonder that we have an obesity problem in this country. I mean, honest to goodness. Who makes that monstrosity?
Sally fouls it out of play. This editorial brought to you by...
I mean, listen, it's play 60 minutes of workout. Well, no kidding. You're eating stuff like that.
This one is a foul ball. Back at third. Beltre coming up with that one, ready to fire. The count is 2 strikes. Hard to argue against you, though.
I mean, that simple clip while you're reading the billboards, and I have heartburn now just by watching it.
Well, one thing leads to another.
And you know what? That is a good question. Where is Todd Callis?
Yeah. See, if he were here, he would be all over that.
Of course he would.
One ball, 2 strikes. Remember a couple of years ago, he carried that around the ballpark all the way up here. And we had to divide that. I don't know how one person can't do it.
I think if you gave Todd all night, he'd gobble that thing right up.
Tapper down to first. And the toss, a lead from Moreland to Perez. Sally is the first out in the 5th.
He's making some inroads.
He is. Slow but steady. And no, I'm not sharing.
He wants the T-shirt.
Brandon Guyer, the top of the order now with 1 out, the base is empty. Pitch is too low to Guyer. 1-0. Fastball by him that time. 1-1. Martin Perez with 1 out in the 5th, starting to push 70 pitches, and he gets a called strike here. 1-2. Up the right side, that's going to fall for a base hit. Guyer turns on the speed. He's going to go for 2, and he is safe at second base. He had that play in front of him and really turned it on, rounding the bag. A close play out there at second. Trip Gibson called him safe, and we'll see if the Rangers want to challenge it.
Yep. Well, a nice job by Brandon Guyer. The adjustment, cutting down the stroke, and then right there is where he makes the determination. He actually was not coming out of the... Now, they may have a chance to get this one overturned, too, but Brandon Guyer coming out of the box was not going as hard as we've seen him in the past, and that tag may have gotten to the foot before the foot gets to the bag. Right here, it pops up. Tag ends up pushing the foot back onto the second base, so we'll have to see. But it certainly looks like you could get this one. Watch right there. Up, tag. Yeah, they're going to have this one overturned. He'll be out. That foot was just not able to stay down. And when it came up, glove ball applied.
So the Rangers challenge the safe call at second base.
Well, here's the thing. It goes back to if Brandon Guyer is coming out of the box hot, this isn't even a play. Right there.
So it's a base hit for Guyer, and he is out at second. So he made a bid for a double, but is cut down trying to get into scoring position. Base is empty for Richie Schaefer. Perez with 72 pitches now. He got over the 100 pitch count mark his last time out. It was on the 8th out in Seattle. Cut and a miss. Schaefer's out on strikes. Bottom of the 5th coming up. 3-2 Rays. The Rays lead. We go to the bottom of the 5th. On the road traveling and want to watch the Rays? Subscribe to MLB.TV Premium for live or on demand on over 400 devices. Real-time highlights, live look-ins, pitch tracking, and more. Blackout and other restrictions apply. Visit MLB.TV for details. Nathan Karns back to work in the bottom of the 5th, and his first pitch is a fastball up and in. 1-0. That's a strike, 1-1. As Karns goes to work in the bottom of the 5th, the Rays bullpen has some action. Strike, breaking ball, and it's 1-2. Colomé, the right-hander, and Cedeno, the lefty. And a strike on the outside corner. Fastball in the mid-90s. Wilson caught looking.
I think that was Nathan Card's answer to the bullpen being up right now. Oh, yeah? How about this? How about 95 on the black? What do you think about that?
So the leadoff man is retired, and that's the first time that's happened against Texas tonight. Now we go to the top of the order, Delino DeShields. And for obvious reasons, a guy you want to keep off the bases. Breaking ball for a strike on the first pitch. One ball, one strike. Back out of play. A fastball, and it's 1-2. Back into the screen, fouled. The fastball, and that one hit 94. He's had a couple of pitches here in 95, 94. Top range of his velocity tonight coming here in the fifth. Down to third. Longoria throws a strike to Forsythe, and they keep DeShields off the bases.
And that ball came up on Evan Longoria. As he's moving to his left, the glove side, that ball, I don't know if it hit the lip, but it took a high bounce. Watch it come up right here. Goes down, boom, pops up by the face. He's got quick hands. Accurate throw.
Shift is on for Chu. Now 1-1. It's upstairs. 2 balls and a strike. This will be the 80th pitch of the night for Carnes. He misses with it inside, now 3-1. He made 86 pitches in 5 innings in his 5-4 win over the Mets the last time out. And he loses Chu. So a 2-out walk to Chu. The left-handed bat of Prince Fielder is due up, and Kevin Cash is headed to the mound. The Rays are going to make a change right here. weekdays, don't miss America's pregame as Mike and Molly bring you live reports from around the country for the latest from NFL training camps and get you ready for a full night of MLB action. Catch America's pregame every weekday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Fox Sports 1 and streaming live on Fox Sports Go. Xavier Cedeno takes over for Nathan Carnes. Xavier inherits a runner with 2 gone.
Not too shabby. 9 1/3 innings over his last 12. 14 punch-outs, not a walk. That is exactly why he's kind of moved up that ladder in the back end of that bullpen. Kevin Cash having the confidence now to bring him on in some tough situations.
Well, he faces Fielder. Fielder, the leading hitter in the American League starting play. Hitting .268 off left-handed pitching with 8 of his home runs against lefties. Started the night at .327 overall. And the first pitch is a strike. So as it now stands, Nathan Carnes cannot win this game, nor can he lose it. He leaves with a 3-2 lead and a runner at first. 2 outs in the 5th. Big cut, a little piece of that one foul. 0-2.
You had better be sure that he's not real happy about coming out of this game, but when you take a look at his line, he didn't do himself any favors with the 5 walks, and I think that's what ultimately led to his demise. Even though the pitch count wasn't out of hand, the command really hadn't been there all night long.
Now 5 walks and a hit batter, 4 strikeouts, just 2 hits, but a lot of base runners. And a fly ball into center field. Kiermaier to the track, and he makes the leaping catch as he got to the wall. An 0-2 pitch. Fielder made a bid for at least an extra base hit, trying to get it out, and Kiermaier would not allow that to happen. Kevin Kiermaier grabs it. Close call right there, and the Rays will take a deep breath, and now they can exhale. So we're through 5, and the Rays continue to hold the lead. It's 3-2. In the 6th inning, Evan Longoria takes it from the left-hander Martin Perez for strike 1. Evans' 2-run double in the 3rd, the difference in the game. 1 for 2 tonight. 4 for 6 lifetime against Perez. Two balls and a strike. Forsythe next, and then Cabrera, middle part of the order for the Rays. Now 3-1. Did he go? Yes, he did on the appeal down to Eric Cooper, and the count is full.
One of those guys, Evan Longoria, is going to have the green light. They're 3-1. He wants that fastball. He got one. A little bit over anxious.
And a tap grabbed by Perez. Throw to first in time. This still a one-run ball game. Kevin Kiermaier robbing Prince Fielder of a 2-run home run in the bottom of the 5th.
Boy, Prince Fielder put a charge into it, center field, and then Kiermaier with the leap. That ball would have gone out by the slimmest of margins if not for this. Well timed, well executed.
Kiermaier kept it in the ballpark to end the 5th inning. The pitch is a strike. You see that replay. Either Kevin Kiermaier was going to catch that one, or Scott Kersey in the bullpen.
And we love the enforcer, but it would not have been very good if he would have caught that. He still can't believe it, Prince Fielder. When you're that close.
Boy, an 0-2 pitch, and he drove it to deep center.
Well, that obviously would have given the Rangers the lead.
There's Scott Kersey out there. A great shot of him. He was in line to catch it, and among a lot of folks associated with the Rays, glad that he didn't get the opportunity. Ground ball deep short. Andrus, with time, makes the good throw to first. 2 outs in the 6th inning. You know, we're talking about all the things that Kiermaier can do, and even against a left-handed pitcher, even with the banged up thumb, those are the ways that he can win games for you. He's cut off a couple of balls that might have been at least a double, maybe a triple tonight. Brought back the potential home run.
Beat out an infield hit.
One strike to count on Cabrera. Yeah, when he beat out that infield hit, that was in the 3rd. It indirectly led to a couple of runs for the Rays. A 1-1 count. Lined into left. That's going to fall for a base hit in front of Hamilton. So Cabrera has another multi-hit game. 2 for 3 tonight.
I mean, that's 9 of his last 10. Since coming off the disabled list, he comes into this ball game hitting .480 and raises the batting average here so far. He just continues to swing a hot bat, and even more impressive is he's swinging great from the right side and even better from the left side, if you can believe that.
He's 26 for his last 53. Desmond Jennings takes the pitch for a strike. Headed toward the middle and a base hit into center. That moves Cabrera to second. Jennings with a couple hits. So with 2 outs, the Rays put up a threat. Tim Beckham is due. And the conference on the mound. And action in the bullpen. Maddox out there taking some time with his lefty. Keona Keela up in the bullpen, and giving him a little extra time. Well, here's Beckham now. Lined a base hit into left in the fourth, giving him 1 for 2. Ball 1.
Well, the Rays have created for themselves here a 2-out opportunity to try to extend this lead.
Two balls, no strikes.
And right there, Tim Beckham has gotten himself a good count here to work with. This is where, as a hitter, you're looking for one pitch, one spot, and letting it fly, trying to do some damage. Beckham already with a hit tonight.
And he takes ball 3. Kiermaier's on deck, and then Casale due. Pair of 2-out singles by Cabrera and Jennings. And ball 4. So the bases are loaded. The bases are loaded for Kiermaier.
Well, Kiermaier has had 2 looks here at Martin Perez, an infield hit and then a little chopper to Mitch Moreland down there at first base, so has a good idea of what Perez is going to try to do to him. What a huge moment in this game.
Rays with the lead, and with 2 outs, an opportunity to broaden that lead. Kiermaier, with his speed, even something softly hit could keep the inning going. Perez misses inside.
Well, and if I'm Kevin Kiermaier now, I'm looking middle of the plate away. He just came in with a fastball in. You doubt that he's going to double up. If he does, so be it. But I'm looking middle away. Oh, right there. That's that.
It's a strike, 1-1.
He's not going to continually pound you in with the fastball. He's doing that to then open up the outer half. That was an 83-mile-an-hour slider that hung right out over the plate.
It's too low. 2-1. Yankees have taken a 4-3 lead on Toronto, and they're hitting now in the 9th inning with that 1-run lead. That's going to be a strike. Same thing with a 2-1 slider that time. 2-2.
Yeah, another one doesn't get a whole lot of depth. That more or less sweeps across the plate, maybe even a little bit off. Yeah, you got to go to hacking now.
Wilson calling time and trots to the hill.
Boy, you used to hate these visits mid-count. You felt like as a pitcher, you get to 2-2, you got a chance to put a guy away, and it kind of breaks up your rhythm to have the catcher come out, go back, set up again.
They're loaded, and the 2-2. Bounce foul. Martin Perez got 2 ground ball outs, then gave up 2 singles and the walk. Kiermaier hits it on the ground to third, glove by Beltre. Throw to the foul side, and Moreland goes over there to take the throw to retire the side. Still 3-2 Rays. Down by a run, came up with their first one in the second inning. But Desmond Jennings single home as Drupal Cabrera, but Josh Hamilton answered that with a 437-foot home run, only to see the Rays come back and put 2 up in the third. But Evan Longoria double home Kurt Casale and Brandon Guyer. And then in the bottom of the 5th, there was Prince Fielder on an 0-2 pitch taking Cedeno deep. But Kiermaier kept it in the ballpark to preserve the 3-2 lead and deny Texas a 4-3 lead. So on we go to the bottom of the 6th, and Cedeno, who finished the 5th, faces Adrian Beltre to begin the bottom of the 6th inning. Throws him a strike. Cedeno, then the left-handed bat of Mitch Moreland, and then Josh Hamilton to follow.
Yeah, and that's the reason why Cedeno is still in the game. Those 2 left-handed hitters. That's why Beltre here, important for Cedeno to keep him off base. Another dangerous bat in the middle of this lineup.
And he quickly has an 0-2 count on him.
Cedeno, so much confidence now in the cutter and the curveball, the breaking ball, the slider, whatever you want to call it. It's got good depth to it, but the breaking ball's been outstanding, and that cutter he keeps right around 90.
Down around his feet. Careful there.
I'm not sure what that was, but you're right. That would be a real tough way to get a base runner, an 0-2 hit by pitch that you bounce. Trying to throw that breaking ball down and in. 83. Boy, if you're Beltre, you're almost half tempted to just pull a Brandon Guyer.
I was going to say, if you're Brandon Guyer, you're at first base right now.
No doubt.
Guyer's been hit 17 times this year by pitch, and that would have been a cinch for him. 1-2. He got him. He strikes him out, and he did not look good doing it.
Oh, he did not. Adrian Beltre, always very confident with his swing. We've seen him hit home runs going down to one knee. 90-mile-an-hour backdoor cutter that gets a ton of depth. That's like an Andy Pettitte style cutter. And you see the swing, all arms by Beltre, fooled badly.
So a very big out to get Beltre. Here's Mitch Moreland. Cedeno throws him a strike.
Boy, the difference in Xavier Cedeno in this run that he's been on, he is staying tall over the rubber. He's letting his hand do the work out in front, and that's what is allowing those pitches to be so sharp.
0-2.
Not drifting with the body, not starting the top half too soon.
To the count on Moreland, who's been very hot at the plate. He breaks his bat, the ground ball to first, bobbled, and now the toss with Cedeno over there. The barrel end of the bat just directly back of first, and with that bat end over end headed toward first, Forsythe grounded that a little issue, but Cedeno alertly was where he was supposed to be.
That's the rule of thumb. A ground ball to the right side, you are immediately breaking towards first base. You never know what's going to happen. And there it is, off the end of the bat, but you see immediately Cedeno is absolutely headed where he's supposed to be. And you wonder, Logan Forsythe with that bat head flipping down there towards him.
Oh, a swing and a miss by Hamilton. Ground ball backhanded by Forsythe, and this one misplayed. Cedeno reaching up, the ball got by him, deflected off his glove, and Hamilton is aboard on the misplay.
Yeah, this absolutely should have been the end of the inning for the Rays. Ground ball, nice play here by Forsythe on the backhand. He's then going to stop and feed this ball to Cedeno. It's a little bit behind him, but Cedeno pulls his eyes off a little bit too soon in order to find first base. You see that? The eyes are looking at the bag. The ball has not been secured.
So Texas gets a 2-out base runner. The error charged to Cedeno. Elvis Andrus will be the hitter.
You know, that wasn't the most perfect feed by Forsythe, but as a pitcher, you know, I got to catch the ball first and then find the bag. Anytime you start to let the eyes drift from the baseball to the bag first, you're setting yourself up for trouble.
Elvis Andrus has struck out and walked tonight. 1 for 1 in his career against Cedeno, and he throws him a first pitch strike. Well, hard to get anything straight from Cedeno. There's always some kind of movement going on.
It's either the breaking ball with depth or the cutter. You're right. When was the last time you saw anything come out and stay on the same plane?
Now 1-1. And he's out in front of that one. 1-2, swinging over it.
How about the hand speed out in front? That's what gets you about Cedeno. And that's all about being correct and being right mechanically before you deliver the ball to home plate. Not delivering the ball with your body, but with your hand. And he is really ripping the hand over the top of that baseball. And then sometimes with that cutter off to the side. That's why the movement is so quick and sharp.
Fly ball toward the right field line. Geyer is there to make the catch. They pitch around the error. Texas strands one, and we go to the seventh. 3-2 Rays. Presented by Geico. It was on this day in 2013. Jason Bourgeois hit for the Rays and picked up his initial hit, a memorable one, an RBI single off Danny Farquhar, giving the Rays a walk-off win over the Mariners. And here in Texas, we go to the seventh, with the Rays leading 3-2. Martin Perez out of the game in favor of Sam Dyson, who the Rays saw earlier this year in a Marlins uniform, and they got to him in a third of an inning for 3 runs. So he's on here to face Curt Casali. Texas got him from Miami on the last day of July. And here's Curt Casali, swinging and missing, strike one. Up the right side, that ball's headed toward the corner. Casali around first, on his way to second with a 2-base hit. So Casali greets the right-hander with a double.
Another example of the Rays hitters not waiting around. You see a fastball out over the plate, put an aggressive swing at it. He saw one for a strike at 95, this at 94. He just stays right with it. Outer half, it was down. Nice job by Curt Casali to go out and shoot that thing out into right field and immediately give the Rays another threat.
Sam Freeman, the lefty, now up in the Texas bullpen. Grady Sizemore hitting here in the seventh, in the spot originally occupied by Brandon Geyer.
And primarily fastball changeup against left-handed hitters. We'll see if that holds here.
Ground ball, fair ball, out at first, throw across the diamond, and out the call there. Mark Carlson on the call. And now a conversation going on between Carlson and Beltre. Kevin Cash got out there, and I think when that ball popped out, that changed everything.
Yeah, and Beltre's going to try and argue and say it was on the, as he tried to pull it out of the glove. Casale, here's the play, the throw by Moreland. He's going to overslide the bag. What else is new? We've seen this all year long. Hand comes off. Well, a hand actually never did come off, so he never should have been called out regardless. Watch this. The hand stays on the bag. It slides to the corner, and it stays on there, right there. Those back fingers are still on. From that other angle, you could see it, so he never should have been called out in the first place. I would invite a look here. Could use a break.
Yeah, a look would certainly clarify this conversation.
It sure would. And that first angle that we saw, the hand of Curt Casale never came off the back edge of the bag. So who cares if he tagged him? He was still holding third base.
Jeff Bannister, the manager of the Texas Rangers, talks it over. And they're going to take a look at that.
Well, here's the look, and watch Casale's hand. It never leaves the bag. The fingers are still on it. Those back two fingers were still on the bag regardless of the tag, so I don't think this matters either way. He's going to stay right there.
So the Rays should come out of this with a man at third and one out.
And here's the other thing. The tag was put down. It hit the hand that was attached to the bag, and the ball popped out. So it doesn't matter either way. They're going to get it wrong twice. Should be a penalty for that. First of all, he never came off the bag, so he was safe there. And then your guy dropped the ball anyway. That's twice.
See, right there is the first tag, first and only tag that was made.
And that hand never came off the bag.
The ballpark, they keep showing it from another angle
that fits their agenda.
Yeah, it would appear that there's a possibility of a tag on the back, but when you see it from the other angle, that first attempt at a swipe tag never occurred, and the tag never really occurred until Casale's hand was on the bag and the tag was made on the hand. See, there's one that's not conclusive, and if you look at it from another angle, it becomes clear that that tag was never made there. So at Command Central, they're attempting to look at it from every angle possible.
They're putting a puzzle together right now. And then when they're done with that, they're going to get to these replays.
See, you can't tell a thing there. That shot, for the purposes of determining whether he was safe or out, is pointless.
I'm with you, partner.
And we have to also remember that the call is safe. So they've got to come up with something that is absolutely clear and convincing to change this call. Oh, they're going to call him out.
Wow.
And now that's an interesting determination. So there's a chance they could call him out on the ball coming out of the glove after that tag.
And that's why I cannot wait to see what the definitive look was.
That'll be interesting.
Real interesting.
He was clearly safe, and if they're arguing that he tagged him and then he was taking the ball out of the glove, that's one thing. But right here shows you. No tag, no tag. His hand's on the bag by that point. And that's pretty amazing. So it turns out to be a 5-3 double play.
They had to say that was it. That for some,
and it
had to be the first tag that they called him out on. That ball went into the glove and somehow he got the back of Casale's shoulder. I'll bet you that's where they're calling him out.
Well, I'd like to see the clear and convincing evidence of that. Schaefer tapping one foul, so the count is 0-2. Here's another angle.
They throw the tag up, and I think they're having to say that was the tag, and the hand at that point wasn't to the back.
It's not clear and convincing.
No, to somebody.
I mean, not on a safe call. It's not clear and convincing because they're reading depth perception into that. I mean, 1-2 the count on Schaefer.
You know, here's the thing, though, that, you know, when you send these back to New York, it's still subjective to whoever's in New York.
Absolutely. Schaefer's out on strikes. Rays do not score. They lead 3-2. Sun Sports is brought to you by Patrick's Tavern. Come join the party we call Patrick's. Kubota. To find a participating dealer, go to FloridaKubotaDealers.com. And by your Gulf Coast Honda dealers. The Rays are in Arlington, Texas tonight, moving into the bottom of the 7th inning. And the Rays have a 3-2 lead. Well, the new pitcher on the hill for the Rays is Steve Geltz. Carnes for 4 2/3. Cedeno for an inning and a third, and now it's Geltz.
Yeah, Geltz's turn. If the Rays want to eke out this victory here in 9 innings, 4 2/3 for Carnes. It's going to have to be 4 1/3 by the bullpen. Great job by Xavier Cedeno. Steve Geltz comes on now here in the bottom of the 7th inning, and he'll face the bottom of the Ranger order.
Odor is scheduled to lead off. Then Bobby Wilson and Delino DeShields, but Mike Napoli has a bat. And Grady Sizemore takes over in right field. Well, here is the definitive look, they say. But you see, that's not definitive because you don't know where his hand was in regard to the bag when that was made. That's the definitive look. And I'm just going to go on record to say that's not a definitive look. It might not make any difference in the game one way or the other. But that is not, N-O-T, all capitals, not.
You went all caps on the not?
A definitive look. There's just, logically, that's not a definitive look. It is what it is, and we're going to continue on to the bottom of the 7th inning. And Steve Geltz with the first pitch to Odor, and that's a strike call.
I'm taking you out tonight as my muscle.
Taking me out as having me accompany you and not really just taking me out.
No. Yeah, you're going to lead the way. You're in the right frame of mind. Love it.
1-1 to count. Odor's grounded to second and to first. Two balls and a strike. Fly ball into center. Kiermaier takes care of that. One gone. And now Bobby Wilson is due up, and it's going to be Napoli to hit for him.
Well, and you got to think that the Texas Rangers are thinking this is the inning that we need to make a move because we know who's lurking in the 8th and in the 9th. Not really sure what order we're going to get them, but we know it's McGee and Boxberger, so they feel like they've got to make a move now.
Well, here's Napoli. He takes a big cut and he misses. Strike one. Napoli 0 for 3 in his career against Geltz. One ball, one strike. Napoli coming back to Texas from the Boston Red Sox. 2 balls and a strike. Napoli was here in Texas in 2011 and 12 and back with them now. High popper right side, foul ball near the stands, and it's Forsythe making the catch coming over from first.
Napoli was up there to do one thing, and that was to try to drive the ball for extra bases. Geltz is able to retire him. 2 outs, nobody on. This Rays bullpen was so good on that last homestand. The current win streak.
Delino DeShields. Shields, 1 strike to count to him. Shields was hit by a pitch, stole a base, and scored a run in the first. And the Rays fortunate to get out of all of that. Bases loaded and nobody out. And Texas scored just the one run. He walked, the Shields did, and the third was caught stealing. And that's something that hasn't happened very often this year. He is 19 steals and only 4 caught stealing. So you'd like to keep him off the bases.
Well, you're absolutely right about that, Dwayne, because you know he's going to push the envelope. This is the type of situation with 2 outs that if he were to reach first base, you know he's got to think about going. And he actually, you know, he stole second base in the first inning, and then he stole it the next time. It just happened to, you know, come off the back.
The 2-2. Oh, a long one to left. Forget about stealing a base. He's hit one out. That's a fair ball. And this game is tied. Shields hits his first home run of the year.
Boy, that looked like a fastball from Steve Geltz that he's trying so hard to get away from DeShields that he opens up a little bit too soon. The ball stays arm side high. Look at, they're trying to go down and away, and this ball ends up and in, and DeShields right into his swing.
So DeShields hits his first big league home run. And it ties the game.
And Dwayne, really, that's the only location where I think he's going to hit a home run. It's just a ball up and in where he's flying open and it runs right into the barrel.
The strike to Chu. 2-strike count now. Cut to miss. Chu's out on strikes. That retires the side, but all of a sudden we have a tie ball game here at the end of 7. The Rays 3, and on the home run by DeShields, Texas 3. Tonight's game summary brought to you by Gold and Diamond Source. Texas getting the home run, in the bottom of the 7th from Delino DeShields, his first big league home run. And the game tied as we go to the 8th. Evan Longoria facing Sam Dyson. Longoria doubled home 2 runs in the 3rd. Ground ball deep short. Andrus with a long throw. Out the car.
What an arm. Boy, initially you thought Evan had a chance because the ball comes out of Elvis Andrus' glove. But he recovers quickly, and then, wow, did he throw a pea over to first base. And they did get him.
Very close at first. Longoria out. And here's Logan Forsythe against Dyson. Pitch is a strike. Well, the fact that that ball popped away from Andrus and they still got him really is amazing. Two. That had some bite to it, that pitch.
I'm pretty impressed here with the movement on Dyson's pitches. We've seen the fastball in the mid-90s with good sink. That changeup right there just fell off the table.
One ball, 2 strikes. Count still 1-2. That mid-90s fastball fouled away.
And that's the one as a hitter that you can't miss. You know, Dyson's been down. When he's down, there's a lot of downward action movement. That last fastball up, when it's up, it tends to flatten out, becomes much more hittable.
Up with that one, it's 2-2. Chris Jimenez now catching. Wilson lifted for the pinch hitter.
Is this where the Rays send all of their former catchers?
Apparently. Bobby Wilson started. Now Chris Jimenez. We got Robinson Chirinos over here. Tapper foul. Surprised Kelly Shoppach hasn't made an appearance. He's from down the road here in Fort Worth.
Well, they already have Mike Napoli. It's the same guy. So.
Now the count is full. And that got him. Foul tip, strikeout.
That pitch is just filthy. That's 95 miles an hour. And when he keeps it down, watch this late movement. I mean, right under. Logan Forsythe feels that he's got a pretty good beat on that pitch, and it just darts below the swing.
Well, here is Asdrubal Cabrera. Continues to stay red hot at the plate. He's 2 for 3 tonight. Into the dirt. This one's headed toward right field, going to fall in for a base hit. His third hit tonight. How hot can he be? 3 for 4.
It really is amazing, and we've talked about the fact from both sides of the plate. 2 hits from the right side tonight, comes up now from the left side, and he's all over this pitch. Well, he just hasn't missed any mistakes made by pitchers in the last 2.5 weeks.
He's now officially hitting .500 in his last 54 at bats. He's 27 for 54.
Remarkable.
First pitch, Desmond Jennings takes it outside. Jennings has 2 hits tonight. 2 for 3. One. Texas adding Dyson recently to their bullpen. A couple of weeks ago. It's a bullpen that has been troublesome. Ground ball headed toward the middle, through into center. And with 2 outs, the Rays have men at first and second. And Jennings has a 3-hit night. 11 hits for the Rays. They've out-hit Texas 11-3. And we're tied 3-3.
Well, the second time that the Rays left fielder has used the middle of the field. Finding a hole up the middle, extending this inning, giving the Rays another chance to break this tie.
So here's Beckham. Beckham with a single and a walk. Which is foul.
Well, Dwayne, you wonder here in this situation, you start thinking maybe James Loney, 2 outs, 2 aboard, tie ball game, but you've got Diekman out warming up, and so Kevin Cash is forced between, would I rather have Dyson on Beckham or Diekman on Loney, and that's where the decision is made.
Well, and the only difference is when Dyson was with the Marlins, Beckham got a hit off him and won it back. Behind in the count now. And out on strikes. He looks at strike 3, leaving 2 men. Another look at the strikeout pitch taken by Tim Beckham. We go to the bottom of the 8th. It's a 3-3 ball game. Live, the pregame show presented by your Gulf Coast Honda dealers. Chris Archer on the hill. We'll be hearing from him, and the Roasters will break down Adrian Beltre. This game tied. We go to the bottom of the 8th, and it's going to be Jake McGee on the hill for the Rays against Prince Fielder. So power on power here.
These are the fun matchups. Jake McGee, we know what he's going to do, although the way that he works Prince Fielder, obviously he's going to see some fastball, but we've seen Jake McGee go to that breaking ball more and more as the season has wore on. So you get ahead of a guy like Prince Fielder, he may just see that curveball.
First pitch is a strike. Fielder robbed of the home run back in the 5th inning on the catch by Kiermaier. And a big cut to miss there. 0-2.
And I don't know if I'd be messing around with the breaking ball after that fastball. If Jay McGee feels confident about being able to climb the ladder with the heater right here and keep it close to Fielder, I'd give it another shot. That fastball up and in. Going to be tough for the big left-handed hitter to lay off of it, and it's going to be even more difficult for him to reach it.
Foul back. Well, Jake, one step at a time. Each pitch has been harder than the first.
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely with an 0-2 fastball, you're going to really try to hump up. The pitch away, though, it gives Fielder a chance, and that's what he was able to do right there, is just foul it off. So you wonder if now he doesn't come with that breaking ball.
And he got him. That's exactly what he did, and he strikes him out.
Well, that's the right call after that fastball away. Fielder speeds his bat up to get to it with the good velocity, and then like we said, he's been throwing this a lot more frequently, and he comes with it, and Fielder, he places it perfectly and gets the desired result.
One away in the 8th. Here's Adrian Beltre. And he skips rope to get out of the way of that one.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. A hopscotch. A little double Dutch action.
Oh, 2.
This at bat right now is coming apart. Jumping over the fastball, swinging so viciously, you lose your bat. Boy, can he take a big cut or what?
Well, the count's really 1-1 that last swing, although he missed it by a lot. Took a big cut, still only counted for 1 strike. So it's 1-1. 1-2 now on the foul ball.
He definitely does not cut down on his swing.
Short conversation there on the mound with McGee.
Archer's hair's ready to go.
Yep. Without question. And he continues to stay with the same hat size.
Well, that's the thing. He can't wear it now during the games that he doesn't pitch. That thing's got to rest because it is pushed to its limit on game day, baby.
Beltre fouls this one out of play. Archer and Colby Lewis tomorrow night here. For Sunday, a day game before the Rays head down to Houston and then out to Oakland. It's been taken as it broke down 2-2. We've seen a couple of those curveballs in this outing.
Well, and the thing about it with Jake, the fastball is so good, but the curveball, it's not just a show pitch. He's shown the ability to locate that pitch, to throw it effectively, and that's the difference. It's not just a change of pace. Look what I have. Hey, I can finish you off with this pitch. We've already seen it once.
Ground ball sharply hit into left center. Jennings returns it to the infield, a one-out base hit. Tonight is Flashback Rays night, brought to you by Rams. Submit the best vintage photo of yourself by using the hashtag #FlashbackRays. We'll select the best photo and feature it on the postgame show. Well, that base hit by Beltre, his first off McGee. He is 1 for 6 off McGee. And that's exactly what Mitch Moreland is as he steps in. Moreland 0 for 3 overall tonight, coming off a 4-hit game against Minnesota yesterday. Pitch is a strike. Eighth inning in Arlington, tied 3-3. Up the middle and through into center. Beltre's going to go to third, and the throw is not in time. Safe the call. Beltre calculating that he could make it, and he did head first.
Only because of the way that he took off after the ball was hit. That's the only chance you're going to have against Kevin Kiermaier. Here it is, secondary lead, and he's already going hard. Has already made the decision that he is going to push the envelope, knowing that Kiermaier's got a good arm. He gets in ahead of the throw, and because he forces the throw, Mitch Moreland is able to move up to second base. Boy, that is aggressive base running, but in a tightly contested game like this, that's what you got to do. Try to make something happen. Well, now you need Jake McGee to come up big time here with the strikeout.
And it's second and third, and Josh Hamilton will be the hitter.
That infield comes in, of course.
Hamilton homered back in the second off Carnes. Pitch is low.
That's encouraging.
Strike makes it 1-1.
And a good job here early on by Jake McGee. The fastball's right down at the bottom of the strike zone. 1 ball, 1 strike, but if he does get contact, a better chance for the ground ball. And we're going to want this one up.
And a popper back at third. Not a lot of foul territory, and it's out of play.
Well, and that's okay, because you know what? Now you can go for the strikeout. Josh Hamilton, when you get him to 2 strikes, he will expand the zone. He'll expand the zone with the breaking ball down away. Probably not going to go there. Probably going to go with the fastball up. And he'll expand up too and chase.
Fly ball center field. Kiermaier is going to have to go back to make the catch. Beltre scores after the tag. And Texas takes the lead on a sacrifice fly by Hamilton, scoring Beltre as Moreland trails into third.
And Dwayne, I think that the only way that Josh Hamilton gets to this pitch is that he's waiting for this pitch, knowing they're going to expand up. How do you get to that? 97 miles an hour at the letters, almost shoulder high. But it was like, you know what? I know what they're going to do here, and he's going to try to beat me up with the fastball. I'm going to try to get to the spot first, and he did. I cannot believe he got that ball.
So 2 gone, and here's Andrews. Up the middle and a base hit into center. He jumped on the first pitch fastball and makes it a 2-run game, 5-3. Andrews picking up his first hit of the night, and he drives in a run with it.
Well, all 3 hits in this inning have been right back up the middle.
Well, Texas had 3 hits total through the first 7 innings, and they have 3 hits in the last 4 men who've come to the plate here in the 8th. We'll be back in a moment.
Texas 5-3 in the bottom of the 8th. Be sure to stay with us after the game for Rays Live, the post-game show presented by Checkers. Rich and Orestes will be in the studio. I will be gathering interviews in the clubhouse. See how Nate Carnes thinks of pitching in front of his family and friends with that rush of emotions. We'll get Kevin Cash's press conference and more. Dwayne?
All right, Emily, thank you. As you mentioned, Brandon Gomes on. He'll face Odor, the second baseman. That Odor with a runner at first. That's Andrews. 2 runs have scored, both charged to McGee. So Gomes inherits the 1 runner at first base. And he's picked them off. Forsythe. Now the run back. That's Beckham. Forsythe started it. He runs him back. And finally, it's Cabrera who puts the tag on him. So it's a caught stealing, and it goes 3-6, 4-3, 6. And that ends the 8th inning. We go to the 9th, 5-3 Texas. 5-3 ball game. That American League wild card, the Rays coming in 2 games back. Toronto on top of the wild card. The Yankees came back to beat Toronto 4-3, so it's Toronto, then the Angels, and the Rays 2 back. Texas started the day 3.5 back, and right now the Rangers lead by 2 runs here in the 9th. And it's Sean Tollison on the hill, the 3rd pitcher of the night for Texas, making his 51st appearance.
Well, more than a strikeout an inning, only 12 walks and 21 out of 22 in saves. So if the Rays are going to hang a blown save on them, it's going to take some work. Starts here.
Kiermaier takes the first pitch low and away. Rays need at least a base runner. Kiermaier leads it off, and John Jaso already on deck. It's popped up. Foul ball. Jimenez away with the mask, makes the catch. 1 away. Now John Jaso to bat against Tollison. Tonight's Cold Hard Facts brought to you by Clean Crisp Coors Light. How about this for Jaso on the road this year, hitting .459. And he's trying to get on base to give the Rays a shot. Ground ball, and that's through into center, wasting no time. So the Rays do get a base runner here with 1 out in the 9th inning. Rays have now had a dozen hits. They've out-hit Texas 12-6, but they trail 5-3.
Well, now you're 1 swing away, and this ball able to sneak up the middle by Odor. Boy, that close. And now you get Grady Sizemore. He's been hitting the ball with authority as of late, and the way that the ball's been carrying here tonight, just get one in the air and see what happens.
Sizemore grounded out in the 7th in what turned out to be a 3-5 double play. Ball 1 too low. Line drive caught by Odor, and that's going to end the game on the double up at first. Sizemore lines into the double play and ends this game. It's a 5-3 final. Jaso doubled off first, and Texas will get to 500. They are 57-57. The Rays a game over at 58-57. The Rays had won 4 straight. That little streak comes to an end, and here is the final play of the game.
Jaso did not have a chance. That ball well struck by Grady Sizemore, but right at Odor and made for an easy double play. What a tough way to end it.
So 2 runs in the 8th. Wins it for the Texas Rangers. 5-6-1 for the Rangers. 3-12-1 for the Rays. Dyson the winner, McGee the losing pitcher, and the Rangers take game 1 of this series. For Brian Anderson and the rest of our crew, Dwayne Stats, hope you've enjoyed the telecast. If not the outcome, we'll be with you tomorrow on Sun Sports. Our coverage begins at 7:30 for game 2 of this 3-game series.